My name is Ethan Marlowe. At 38, I thought I had life figured out, not perfectly, but enough to find joy in small things. I was a high school history teacher in our quiet town, and more importantly, I was a single father to 3 boys who were my entire world. My oldest, Landon, was 14. He was tall for his age, with a mop of unruly brown hair and a gentleness that always surprised me. He had a passion for the stars. Many evenings after the twins were asleep, we'd sit on our tiny apartment balcony with an old secondhand telescope. He'd look up and whisper, "Dad, do you think there are kids out there looking down at us the way we're looking up?" I never had an answer, but the wonder in his eyes made me believe anything was possible. The twins, Caleb and Noah, were 5, full of energy, mischief, and curiosity. Caleb was bold, the kind of boy who'd jump first and figure out the landing later. Noah was the opposite, cautious, thoughtful, always asking why before trying something new. Together, they turned our cramped 2-bedroom apartment into a playground, their laughter echoing through the walls no matter how tired I felt. Life wasn't easy. My paycheck as a teacher barely stretched to cover rent, groceries, and endless library fines from all the books Landon devoured. Their mother, Melissa, had left years earlier, chasing wealth and excitement with another man. She called occasionally, but the boys had learned not to wait on promises she rarely kept. My parents lived close by, but they never offered help. My father judged me for being just a teacher, while my mother stayed silent in the background. I told myself it was fine. I didn't need them. All I needed was my boys. Our routine was chaotic, but filled with purpose. Mornings began with cereal debates, Caleb always demanding extra sugar while Noah argued about fairness. Afternoons I spent teaching history to teenagers who barely listened, and evenings were for homework, dinners, and stargazing with Landon. I was exhausted, but I was content. Until the night, everything changed. Landon collapsed in the kitchen, a glass slipping from his hand and shattering on the floor. I rushed him to the hospital, my heart pounding with dread. What I thought might be dehydration or exhaustion turned into words I will never forget. "Your son has a brain tumor. It's aggressive." I gripped the hospital bedrail, staring at his pale face as the doctor explained surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, all with no guarantee. My world cracked open in that moment. My boy who dreamed of the Grand Canyon, of rockets and galaxies, was suddenly facing a fight for his life. From that night on, hospital corridors became our new normal. I brought coloring books and snacks for the twins, juggling their needs while staying by Landon's side. But the weight of it all pressed down on me. I couldn't be in 2 places at once. I couldn't protect them all. That was the night I realized our ordinary life was gone forever. Every day became a cycle of rushing. Mornings began with backpacks, cereal spills, and trying to hide the exhaustion in my voice. By noon, I was in front of my students, talking about history while my mind was in a hospital room. Evenings were spent at Landon's bedside, his once bright eyes dulled by chemotherapy, but still holding sparks of wonder. "Dad," he whispered one night, "do you think I'll still see the stars when I get better?" I squeezed his hand and forced a smile. "Of course you will, son. We'll see them together." But inside, I wasn't sure. The twins struggled with the upheaval. Caleb's boldness turned into tantrums. Noah clung to me constantly, afraid to let go of my hand even in the waiting room. They were too young for this life. The endless beeping of monitors, the whispers of bad news, the tears of strangers passing through the hospital halls. They needed stability, but all I could give them was survival. I tried holding it all together, but the truth was, I was drowning. So one night, after another long day, I picked up the phone. My pride burned as I dialed the number, but desperation silenced it. "Mom. Dad." My voice cracked. "Please, I need help. Landon's treatments start tomorrow. I can't bring the twins every time. Just a few hours a week. That's all I'm asking." There was a pause. I could hear my mother's soft sigh, hesitant, almost sympathetic. But before she could answer, my father's voice cut in, sharp as ever. "You chose this life, Ethan. You married that woman. You decided to be a teacher when you could have done better. Don't call us expecting us to clean up your mistakes. I begged. I told them how sick Landon was, how the twins needed their grandparents. But his voice only grew colder. You've been coddled enough. Figure it out. Then the line went dead. I sat in the dark, staring at the phone, my hands trembling. My parents lived just 15 minutes away, yet in the moment I needed them most, they left me more alone than ever. With no other family nearby, I made the call I had sworn I would never make. Melissa answered quickly, her tone impatient. What now, Ethan? I explained through tears. Landon's illness. The treatments. The twins. Please, I begged. If not for me, do it for him. He's your son, too. Her response was laughter, cold and cruel. You want me to babysit because you can't handle it? You're still just a broke teacher, Ethan. I moved on from that life. You should too. Then she hung up. The silence afterward was heavier than any words. My children's mother, the woman who once promised forever, had turned her back not only on me, but on her dying son. So I pressed on alone. I packed the twins' backpacks like survival kits, coloring books, crackers, juice boxes. I held Landon's hand at night, whispering encouragements I barely believed, while Caleb and Noah dozed in waiting room chairs. At work, I stood in front of classrooms, but my students saw through me. My eyes were hollow, my words automatic. Bills piled higher, and so did the weight on my shoulders. Anger simmered at my father's harshness, my mother's silence, Melissa's cruelty, but grief always overpowered it. One night, staring at my sleeping children, I asked myself, how do I hold this family together when it's already breaking apart? And the truth was, I didn't know. The night I lost Landon, the skies outside raged with thunder. Rain hammered the hospital windows, but inside, the world was eerily quiet. I sat by his bed, holding his fragile hand, listening to the steady beeping of machines that felt more like countdowns than lifelines. My boy, my gentle, stargazing dreamer, looked so small. 14 years old, yet worn thin by a fight no child should ever face. His breaths grew shallow, each one a battle. I leaned in close, fighting tears. Dad, his voice was barely a whisper. His lips curled into a faint smile. Don't be sad. Promise me you'll take care of Caleb and Noah. My throat tightened. My heart broke. I forced out the words, though my voice shook. I promise, son. I promise. Moments later, he was gone. The beeping flatlined into silence. The storm outside roared, but inside, the world collapsed. I buried my face in his chest and sobbed until my body shook, clutching the boy who once dreamed of rockets and galaxies. My Landon, the light of my life, was gone. The days after blurred together. The funeral was a haze of faces and murmured condolences, none of which eased the weight crushing my chest. I moved through it all like a shadow, holding the twins' hands while trying to be strong, even as every step felt hollow. Caleb asked me one night, "Where's Landon now, Daddy?" Noah cried softly, clinging to me, then drifted to sleep in my arms. I told them he was in the stars, watching us, but saying it didn't heal the ache. At night, after the boys slept, I found myself staring at Landon's telescope on the balcony. Dust had begun to gather on it, but I couldn't move it. I couldn't even touch it. It felt like looking at a ghost. One particularly dark night, I broke. I sat at the kitchen table, a bottle of pills in front of me. My hands shook as I unscrewed the cap. The thought echoed in my mind. I failed him. I wasn't enough. And now the pain is too much to carry. But before I could take another step, I heard small footsteps padding across the floor. Caleb, clutching his stuffed dinosaur, rubbed his sleepy eyes. "Daddy, are you okay?" I shoved the bottle aside and forced a weak smile. "Yeah, buddy. Just couldn't sleep." Then Noah appeared, dragging his blanket behind him. He climbed onto my lap, his little arms wrapping tightly around my neck. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Please don't go away, too." Their words cut through me sharper than any blade. In that moment, I realized what I was about to do, not just to myself, but to them. I couldn't leave them. They had already lost a brother. They couldn't lose their father too. I gathered them both into my arms, sobbing as I held them tight. Right then, I made a choice. Not for me, but for them. I flushed the pills down the sink. The next day, I began again. Slowly. I cooked simple meals. I took the twins to the park, watching their laughter rise like sunlight through clouds. At night, I told them stories about Landon, about his love for the stars, his kindness, his dreams. It hurt, but it also healed. Grief never left, but purpose began to return. I wasn't strong by nature. I was strong because I had no other choice. Caleb's mischief, Noah's questions, their small hands in mine, they were the reasons I endured. 1 week later, just as I was finding fragile footing, a knock echoed at the door. The twins were playing with blocks, their laughter filling the room. I hesitated before opening it, unaware that whoever stood on the other side would change everything. I opened the door to find a woman I'd never seen before. She looked to be in her late 50s, with silver streaks in her hair and kind eyes that seemed to carry their own history of loss. She introduced herself softly. "My name is Margaret. I'm a volunteer with a local support group. The hospital told me about Landon and about you." At first, I stiffened. I wasn't sure if I wanted another stranger's sympathy. But there was something steady in her gaze, something that didn't pity me, but understood me. She didn't push her way in. She simply asked, "Can I sit with you and your boys for a while?" That night, she sat on the living room floor, building block towers with Caleb and Noah. For the first time in months, I heard their laughter echo without the shadow of hospital walls. I sat across the room, watching in silence, tears welling in my eyes. Over the following weeks, Margaret returned often. Sometimes she brought groceries. Sometimes just stories. She became a gentle presence, not replacing what we lost, but reminding us that we weren't completely alone. It wasn't just Margaret either. Slowly, others began stepping in. A neighbor offered to mow the lawn. One of my students' parents left a bag of clothes for the twins on my porch. Even my colleagues quietly pooled money for a small scholarship in Landon's memory. Each act was small, but together, they stitched cracks in a heart I thought was permanently broken. The boys noticed too. Caleb began to laugh more, his wild spirit returning. Noah grew braver, asking Margaret endless questions about her garden, her cat, her favorite childhood memories. One night, as I tucked them into bed, Caleb whispered, "Daddy, I think Landon sent her." I kissed his forehead, whispering back, "Maybe he did." Through these simple moments, I realized something profound. Strength isn't about never breaking, it's about choosing to stand again, even when you're shattered. And sometimes, the hands that help you stand don't come from where you expect. I began journaling at night, writing down the lessons Landon had taught me: kindness, wonder, resilience. I shared some of those thoughts online, not expecting much. To my surprise, strangers began to respond. People from all walks of life wrote back, saying my story gave them hope in their own battles. It was then I understood, pain doesn't have to be wasted. It can become the seed of someone else's healing. Now, when I take Caleb and Noah outside at night, we set up Landon's telescope. We look at the stars, just as he loved to do. I tell them, "Your brother is up there," reminding us to keep going. And instead of feeling only grief, I feel a quiet kind of peace. The moral: life will break you in ways you never imagined. You'll lose people, face betrayal, and carry burdens you didn't choose. But you always have a choice: to surrender to despair, or to endure for the ones who still need you. And in enduring, you discover that hope is never truly gone. It just waits for the moment you're ready to see it again. So if you're hurting, remember this: you are not alone. Help may come from unexpected places. And even in your darkest night, you can choose to stand for yourself and for those who still look to you for light.